Hi guys, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and welcome from wherever it is that you're watching this series on suicide prevention that we have been on. This is the third episode of this series. And today we are going to be talking about bereavement. Okay, we are going to be looking at how does grief look like to an individual who has lost a loved one through suicide, as opposed to any other loss, be it an accident or sickness. So if you're new here, feel free to subscribe and join. This is the Wellness Circle with Gathoni Bugwa, a space that we use to talk about all matters related to mental health, wellness, and just overall well-being. So is it really different? Is bereavement really different for an individual or a loved one who's lost somebody via suicide? And absolutely yes, it is different. So we say that suicide bereavement is grief that is experienced when somebody dies by suicide. The process of grief is definitely going to be different. Yeah, and here are some key ways that it's different. Number one, there is the questions of why. Why did it happen to us? Why did it happen to me? Why did they do this to us? Okay, why didn't the person reach out? Okay, so those why questions, what could I have done? So you find that the family, the loved one, the friends, they are really over scrutinizing, okay, the experiences that they had with this person, trying to figure out why could this have happened and what is it that they could have done to prevent that death by suicide. Okay, so another thing that also makes it complex and a little bit different is having ambivalent emotions and ambivalent feelings. So you're basically grieving but also oscillating between you love your loved one, you're so sad that they're gone, you're angry at them at the same time, you're also blaming, like why did they do this? All right, so it can be so confusing and so overwhelming that you have all these feelings. And even sometimes you can even have the feeling of, okay, I hope they're at peace. Yeah, you know, trying to empathize a little bit and imagining, okay, if they are in pain, I hope they are at peace, but then also feeling, I wish I knew, I could have done something about it. It's also different because of the trauma that it can cause, especially the person who finds the body of their loved one. Okay, so just looking at the body, at the lifeless body of somebody you loved and you cared about, and coming into the realization that they actually did this to themselves is actually such a painful emotion and can be very traumatic. And with every trauma, like any other trauma, that might be followed by either having flashbacks or either having nightmares. All right, so all those things really make grieving, the bereavement, a bit more complex for individuals. Another thing to also be able to consider that is different is the stigma. So because of stigma, there is also, that is followed by isolation. So there is already so much stigma where mental health or poor mental health or even mental illness is concerned. Okay, we are also in a country where suicidal attempts are a criminal offense. Okay, so because of that stigma, you'll find that an individual that is not even sure, where do I even start having this conversation? Where do I look for a support group of people who've taken, you know, their own life? How do I even search that? So there is fear, and because of that fear, because of that thought of you're gonna be judged or nobody's gonna understand what you're going through, then you're likely to withdraw, you're likely to isolate yourself. So you have all these questions, probably having flashbacks, probably having nightmares, having all these ambivalent feelings up and down, and imagine on top of that you are isolated. Okay, so definitely this grieving process is really going to be quite different for this person. Another thing is also the survivor's guilt, right? So you wonder, why me? and I can really try to imagine, I guess every individual is valuable, but because I'm a parent, I'm trying to imagine being in the shoes where you imagine that your child was in so much pain that they had to take their own life. That feeling of, I wish it was me. I wish I would have been able to take that pain, and then deal with it, or even harm myself if it's gonna save them. That kind of a feeling. So there's also usually the survivor's guilt, and also the blame, the self-blame that comes with having to deal with the reality that your loved one actually took their own life through suicide. So it does absolutely make it way, way harder, or rather very, very complex when you're trying to grieve and to heal, thinking about the loss of your loved one. So another thing that I also want us to look at is, I want us to look at how then do we cope? Okay, how do you cope with the loss of a loved one from suicide? And at the topmost, and this is something that I will continue saying over and over and over, seek support. You're not alone. And sometimes it doesn't even have to be a support group if you don't know. It can be, let me call this toll-free line anonymously and talk to somebody because I'm feeling overwhelmed by my emotions. It can be, let me just go and see a psychologist. And speak in a space that is safe and it's non-judgmental. Whatever you do, seek help. Secondly, prioritize your self-care. All right? Prioritize your self-care. Figure out what is it that I need to do, what works for me in terms of physical self-care, social self-care, emotional self-care, psychological self-care. What can I do to help me feel a little bit better or to cope with what is going on through me? And talking about self-care, and coping, I want to focus on really positive things, because sometimes individuals can go into a space where you're thinking, okay, maybe why not substance use? I am just in such a bad space and I want to numb my feelings. No, it might seem to work. All right. However, taking any substances, alcohol, drugs, whatever it is, and any other substances can make it harder for you to actually cope with a loss, because then now you're introducing something else. Okay, and dependence can also easily can come in, and you don't want to be in that space. Try and avoid the self-blame. Okay, I know it's natural sometimes to kind of feel that guilt and want to ask yourself what you could have done. Sometimes it's even worse if your loved one had left a letter, for example, a suicidal note, and some of that suicidal note had a connotation that it could be you or another family member. So it can feel really bad, all right? However, I just want you to take a moment and remember that suicidal attempt is actually a symptom. It's a symptom of a bigger, larger underlying crisis. Sometimes an already diagnosed mental illness, or even a non-diagnosed mental illness. Okay. Another way that you can also cope is pour yourself into journaling. Studies actually show that there's so much power between pen and paper. So take time, have quiet time. Pour all your feelings, pour all your emotions by writing them down over and over and over for how many days that you might need to do that. Okay, so this actually helps alleviate the pain from inside and transfer it to another space. Another way that you can also use to cope is have a routine. One of the things that you don't want to actually do is be in a space where you're not doing anything. Whereas it's okay to actually feel your emotions, whereas it's okay to also grieve, putting structures is something that is very important. So have a routine, like waking up, getting yourself out of bed, taking a shower, going to take a walk, just start small. You don't have to delve back into normal life, how things used to be, but try your best to have some form of structure. And because of the nature of death by suicide, if you are actually experiencing some trauma related symptoms, these are like flashbacks, these are like serious nightmares, yeah, please seek professional help. Yeah, there's specific kind of psychotherapy that an individual will go through, which is trauma focused cognitive behavioral therapy, and a mental health practitioner can be able to help you learn how to alleviate those symptoms so that you don't develop something else. And last but not least, just give yourself some grace. Have some self-compassion and give yourself some grace. That's it for today. Thank you for joining me in this series as we looked into suicide and bereavement and understanding suicide. In case you have a different way that I have not mentioned in today's conversation that has worked for you, please feel free to put this in the comment, and just calling upon all of us and reminding us that this is a safe space. And the best way to do that is to begin right at the comments by respecting each other's opinion and supporting each other. See you next time.